Alright, so we are back with more Kamen Rider Kabuto, episode 16 to 20, and yeah, taking a few weeks off since the last batch of episodes I did semi-reviews on, uh, was pretty good for, I think, my mental state on the whole show, because realistically, I just could not stand Soji. So, yeah. Um, but now, I think I've calmed down on the show and him enough to uh, continue watching the show. And yeah, so the episode picks up where the last one left off with the uh, battle and everything. It gets over pretty quickly. We get an explanation as to why Soji has joined Shadow, and that is um, basically to just find out more information is what we learned throughout this episode and everything. I am completely confused as to how he so quickly climbed their ranks. You know, it doesn't make any sense to me, and I wonder if it really needs to. I don't know. They're kind of going with the logic of everything in the world revolves around Soji, and everything works out for him no matter what, or most everything works out for him no matter what. So it's kind of one of those things where it's just that. So yeah, so as Soji is head of Shadow, he offers. Uh, sorry, I just need to. Uh, Daisuke, I believe it is. Yeah, Daisuke. He offers Daisuke the chance to join Shadow, and he also says that the riders who don't join Shadow will be hunted down. Um, so, yeah. And immediately, uh, Daisuke, he refuses, but immediately he is attacked by, I'm trying to remember. It's, Kageyama. Kageyama attacks him as the bee, basically just to set him up. This kind of leads to what I think they're setting up is that Kageyama um, is probably like spying on Soji and maybe assumes that he's Kamen Rider Kabuto, um, which he's right, but we don't really get an idea as to how he deduced that at all. Um, but yeah, we do see that he doesn't want to be the subordinate of anybody, and he wants to be the leader of Shadow. Um, but he's forced to be a subordinate under Soji, who entered Shadow as the or under the alias uh Soji Ten Soji something Tendoji. Yeah, really brilliant fucking name change right there, bro. Um but yeah. And yeah, he's man, he couldn't be making this more obvious if he tried, and I Soji is a narcissist, but yeah. So I'm not gonna lie, in regards to this plot, I wanted to see where it went in regards to what Soji was doing with all this shit. So immediately Daisuke goes to where Soji is and asks him about the guy who attacked him. Soji said it wasn't him, and he apologizes for what happened when Daisuke says, "Isn't he your subordinate and he's supposed to be, or and you're responsible for him?" To which Soji, yeah, he definitely agrees with that. To which Daisuke is like, "Huh, that was easy," or "That was easier than I thought it'd be." But I will give it to Soji. He's a dick. He's a narcissistic asshole. And I don't know. He's just a douchebag, but I will give it to him that he's kind of a lawful neutral to a lawful good kind of like character in this way. When it's not something personal to him, I feel like he's more human in a way in terms of like how he comes off. So yeah, I'll give it to him. He's more respectful when it isn't something very personal. So yeah, and we have seen that in previous episodes. So yeah. So Soji has Kageyama come to the restaurant. He has him apologize to Daisuke immediately. Even has him extra bow, because the lower you bow, at least in Japanese culture, probably some other Asian cultures as well, the more respect you're showing. The lower you can go, the more respect you are showing to someone when you are either apologizing or just trying to show respect. And yeah, and it's actually kind of funny. So then he has Kageyama do all the dishes behind the scenes at the restaurant, so that he learns a lesson from it. To which Daisuke says, you don't have to go that far, but then Soji's just like, it doesn't matter, and he's just making him do it. So yeah, and he has Arata make sure he does it right, because Arata works at the restaurant. So yeah. So before this, when it gets back to the main plot started in the last episode of The Doctor, we learn that he doesn't what is it? There's some piece of information that I completely forgot about, but basically he doesn't have any twin brothers, and I think they just learn more about him. I honestly can't remember, because it's at the beginning of the episode, and I can't be fucked to rewatch that. But basically, just like nothing too unusual about him, and they're just basically making sure that the worms are definitely impersonating him and everything. Because in the previous episode, there were two of him that appeared at that little cart restaurant thing that they were at night for a drink and some food after work. So yeah, to which I have to give it to them for the last episode and this one. The green screen for the actor playing the Doctor in these two episodes, pretty well done actually. The split screening and everything, it's pretty seamless. I'm not gonna lie. And they actually had the guy do basically the same motions and lines for when the Doctor and the worms next to him take a drink and say some of the same things. And he does it in a slightly different way for each of them, and I do appreciate that. And yeah, and I just appreciate the special effects work when it comes to this. It would be much better if they could remaster the series into HD and we could have it in true 1080p. They shot these series in 1080i, but mastered the series in, I think, 480p and like 60 FPS or 25 FPS, whichever one it was. So it's not as high quality visually as it could be, unfortunately. And they have yet to re-edit the show with the original footage and everything into HD, because they could easily do that. And I shudder to think what Toei will do with AI, because AI upscaling, it needs to be done in a very specific way. Live action footage, especially, it's not very great when you use AI on live action footage, because as we've seen with the Beatles' Let It Be series, the Get Back series, when you apply it too heavily and you don't control it, it goes out of whack. It goes too overboard. But yeah. I'll give it to him. Like, the green screening is really good in these for the Doctor and the guy and the actor playing the worms that are impersonating the Doctor. So yeah. So when he's at the food stand, there's another worm that shows up. So yeah, so we pretty much just show that there are multiple worms impersonating the guy. We also see Soji is pretending to be a doctor, which kind of reminds me of that episode of Drake and Josh where Drake pretends to be a doctor. Um, but yeah, he dresses as one and is confused for one, and yeah. Uh, so yeah, and he says that it would have taken him a while to infiltrate the hospital, but then which I doubt. But he used his connections with Shadow to get into the hospital faster and work behind the scenes and everything. He has Arata, or actually Arata goes into the hospital and fakes being sick, and then Soji and him kind of play along for a little bit, even though Arata really doesn't want to like play along with this shit, I think. So yeah. And they get all the way to the point where they have the actual doctor come in and sober up, because he sobers up with 2 slaps from one of his nurses, and he's about to operate on Arata, who, by the way, is not sedated at all. He's still awake. But yeah. But before he can cut into him with a scalpel, Soji interrupts him and says, "I misdiagnosed this patient. He's actually very healthy physically." So, yeah. But then, after that, Soji and Arata start talking to the guy. And they find out what actually happened. So, the guy basically was accosted by one of the worms who wanted to kill him and impersonate him. And he made a deal with it to continue saving more human lives for the next, I think, month. And the worm agreed to the request and transformed into him and everything. And due to it transforming into him and having his memories and everything, and basically matching him physically, he has the abilities that the regular guy has with being able to be a good surgeon. So, yeah. But there was a twist that happened there. 3 more? Yeah, 3 more. Or actually, no, just 2 more. 2 more. It's really weird because the subtitles say 5 of them, but it's obviously 4. Figured it's a fault on Toei's part, or the translator's part, for not like checking. So after the doctor tells him that, 2 others joined and imitated him as well, and they've been saving a lot of lives in the hospital over the last month. So yeah, but then the month is up, and one of them comes in to kill him, and then the other 2 join, and yeah. So then Soji and Daisuke transform into Kamen Rider Kabuto and Kamen Rider Drake, and they immediately go into their claw? No, they start fighting 2 of the worms, and then Kageyama shows up and transforms into the bee, starts fighting the other one, and yeah, Soji and Daisuke go into their cast-off. Their cast-off forms and start fighting more speedily, doing the clock up and everything. And I do like how they did the fight here. Soji, like, because he's more of a physical fighter, he bashes, or he more so kind of distracts unintentionally the 2 worms that they're fighting. And then Daisuke charges up his, actually, no, it is actually 5 of the doctors. There are 4 worms, now that I think about it. I'll explain that in a second. Daisuke charges up his laser and shoots the both of the worms they're fighting and everything and kills them. So yeah, and luckily, Soji manages to dodge the blast and everything. Um, then I'm trying to remember which ones happened in which order, but I guess it doesn't really matter for the recap. Arata then is seen chasing after one of the worms that tries to get away. He starts to shoot it with his gun that was specially designed to deal with the worms. And so Soji goes into his clock up form, or his clock up mode. And as Arata is firing the bullets at the worm, Soji then punches it a bit, then does his rider kick and kicks it into oblivion. Then powers down the clock up so that the bullets, the final bullets that Arata fired, hit the worm and hit it at the same time that it's exploding from the rider kick, exploding it. So, yeah. Then Arata is just like, hell yeah, I finally did it. I beat one of the worms by myself. And Soji's just watching from behind a tree. And he's just like, he is entertaining. And it's just like, I see what you did there. I hope you don't ruin it. Because you're a guy who likes to ruin things. Piece of shit. Anyways, so then we see Kageyama fight the worm that he's fighting a bit. He gets crashed into the building right next to them. Then he casts off and fights the thing a bit. But actually, I think the first part of this starts before the thing with Arata. So we see a bit of a few minutes of time go by before we get back to this fight. And Kageyama basically gets the wrist strap mount that he's wearing for the bee changer thing casts away from him when he is beaten onto the ground. And who comes in but I'm trying to Mishima, that's who it is. Come in, and Mishima was the one that told Kageyama that Soji was gonna continue leading Shadow for the moment. But yeah, so he comes in, he physically jumps up and catches the bee. Before that, he put the wrist strap on, and he transforms into the bee. Immediately goes into cast off, then says to Kageyama, "I'm going to teach you how to fight." At least he said that before he transforms, but yeah. And then he starts fighting the worm, and then we see him defeat the worm with the bee's power. Then he transforms back to normal. Then we get a meeting between Kageyama and him, and Kageyama tells him, "Please don't get rid of me." And Mishima says, "Don't worry, we're not going to do that. You're still leader of Shadow." Sojiki, I can't remember what his first name is, but Tendoji has disappeared and everything. But yeah, it's a loss, or it's a shame, but they'll carry on and basically everything, and we have all that. So yeah, but he has a mission for him, and we see Gon, Daisuke's little adopted sister / his caretaker, I guess. We see her walking in the evening, eating some ice cream, as I assume she's going back to wherever the hell she and Daisuke live. And we see Kageyama tailing her. So, yeah, I can only assume what's going to happen next. Yeah. Nothing really too bad outside of a kidnapping. So, yeah, that's what I'm assuming. So I think that this episode is actually pretty good. I think it kind of makes up for the last few a little bit. I think the way that they should execute how Soji's ego leads him to do things is kind of stuff that they do in this episode where they have him kind of bending certain things to his will in a way. Like, he uses Shadow to carry out his mission in this episode to find out what's going on with the worms. And I think that that is pretty good. We don't really care for Shadow that much because they seem kind of like a corrupt organization. So, like, it doesn't really matter that that Soji manipulates them into doing what he wants because, well, we already think of them as kind of shitty people. So, yeah, shitty or shady, whatever one. I think Soji letting Arata think he has the win, I think that that's actually pretty nice. We haven't really seen Soji be that nice to Arata in, like, what, 10 episodes maybe? 12 maybe? And I do like that he lets Arata have the confidence boost and everything from the win. Because he knows Arata doesn't stand a chance against the worms without a rider power. And everything. I do appreciate when we do see Soji's, like, softer side and everything. When he's not so much of a fucking, I don't know, toxically masculine prick. You know? Or even just narcissistically masculine prick. Or toxically narcissistic prick. Whatever one. Pick one. But yeah. Kageyama, I do not like. I do not give a shit about him. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. He seems like this series is Hojo, except not nearly as, like, successful as Hojo. I don't know. From Agito. If you have not listened to my Agito podcast, you should get on that if you want context on that. If you have not seen Agito, at the very least. It just, yeah, he's just getting annoying. He's kind of dumb, and I don't know. He's just kind of pathetic. I'm not gonna lie. He doesn't really deserve to be in the bee suit. He doesn't really deserve to be leader of Shadow. I don't know why they keep him at all. And it'll be interesting to see what happens from here, I guess. But yeah, the whole plot with the worms, I think, was actually interesting because, like, we haven't seen anything like this yet where multiple worms imitate one guy, and everything. And I think the worms really do kind of go about certain things the wrong way. So there's kind of like an absolutism to how Soji sees the worms, and that's how I think the series sees the worms. Basically, at the very least, these specific worms. Basically, the worms are still gonna kill the doctor. Wakabayashi, and take his place and everything. But they still want to save human lives, is what I've gathered from their dialogue. And the thing I just have to say about that is just, like, you can still save human lives if that's what you want to do, especially as the guy, because you've been doing so for the last month. You've been doing all these surgeries and everything. Oh yeah, and the way Soji deduced that doctor that they talked to was the real one is the fact that he was the only one where when he gets drunk, he gets sobered up by the nurse slapping him. That's basically how he was able to tell. I guess the worms weren't like that. But yeah, I would have also thought it would have been because he was the only one at that food stand with a cell phone. Which I think would clue the audience in that he's the real guy, but yeah. But yeah, it's just like, if they played the worms differently in this episode, I feel like they could have maybe had a bit of a moral conundrum, because if they showed the worms as loving what they're doing and maybe not wanting to kill Wakabayashi, they definitely could, I think, go on existing as they are as clones of the guy. But they didn't want to do that, and Soji basically says a worm is still a worm, or however he words it, and it's just like, God, um, they could have played this a different way if they wanted to, but they didn't want to, so I don't know. But yeah, so good episode, I would say, for the most part. So yeah, uh, yeah, really not much else to say on this. I do like that Kageyama got his comeuppance fucking immediately. That and Soji was just completely like on his shit from the moment uh it started. I do like when assholes get their comeuppance. I think Soji doesn't get any real comeuppance. They just make some jokes at his expense some of the time. Um, it's just I don't know. But yeah, so I don't really have too much else to say about this one on episode 17.
I just want to say the konbini that or convenience store that Gon is walking away from that she got the ice cream from is clearly a Lawson. Only people who've been to Japan will get that reference. Anyways, so or get what Lawson is. So anyways, yeah, episode 17. Very interesting one and start to whatever the hell this new little story arc is. Um so picking up from the last one, we see Kageyama um, stalking Gon as she's walking with her ice cream and everything, and he tries to grab her. Um, he doesn't succeed at first because I'm pretty sure because Daisuke is nearby and Gon is still making a bit of a fuss from being grabbed, obviously. Uh, she gets freaked out, so she runs to Daisuke, Kageyama losing his grip on her. And she tries to tell Daisuke that someone grabbed her and everything, but Daisuke doesn't immediately believe her. I really don't understand why he's so like what is the word? Um Callous. Why he's so callous towards her feelings in the situation. And I really just do not like this in regards to Daisuke, but granted, the episode frames it as in the wrong, so it's at the very least fine for a bit of character development and drama, as long as it gets resolved in a good way. Um, so basically, we see Daisuke and Gon go to a few different uh, makeup things the next day, and Gon, because she's still freaked the fuck out over what happened the night before, she gets distracted by it and messes a few things up until at the second makeup thing for a I'm trying to remember um the woman who is a part of Zect, not Hiyori, Yuzuki Misaki, I think it's Misaki, um where she's getting all prettied up and everything for whatever the hell photo shoot that is, when Daisuke calls her up and calls in the agreement that they made where she would be the model, I guess, for his makeup and everything. Uh, Gon accidentally knocks over his guitar case with all of his makeup stuff in it, and he gets frustrated at her and tells her to just get the fuck out if she's gonna be so disruptive to everything. I, I, okay. So the episode is framing this in the wrong as we get Gon obviously being very sad. She runs to the uh, the restaurant that Hiyori works at, because I believe it was in the last episode they met while or it was earlier in this episode. Either way, um, they met when Gon was on her own for a second, and they both had a brief conversation while sitting on some swings on a swing set. And so she starts talking to Hiyori about what happened and everything. Um, and we also see Soji come in and and ask what's wrong and everything. And basically, I think because he has a little sister who is a bit older than Gon, but you know is is still roughly that kind of like preteen age. Um, he obviously has a soft spot for um, little girls who are in need of like emotional help and everything. So he also listens to what she says um, about what happened with Daisuke as well. And basically, both he and Hiyori are in agreement that like she didn't really do anything necessarily too bad, and Daisuke is the one like being unreasonable about the situation. Note though that Gon doesn't tell them that um she was like jumped by somebody the night before. So yeah, as being the reason why she's like freaked out and everything. Um she then asks Hiyori if she'll go with her to apologize to Daisuke. Hiyori agrees and tells Soji to mind the restaurant while she's gone. And so he does, and they start walking towards I guess where Daisuke was working, or at least trying to find Daisuke. Daisuke makes his way to the restaurant and starts to I think he orders something. And or no, he doesn't. He has an interview with a woman who came into where he was doing his makeup stuff for the photo shoot, and I think to have Misaki be his model for his makeup stuff, so he can get good shots of someone with his makeup applied, and he can send those out to agencies and whatever to get more famous as a makeup artist. Um, so they're doing an interview for a magazine, and basically, when he sees Soji there, because Soji gives him some water, or gives them both some water, Soji basically just rips into him and just basically says words to the effect of he's a piece of shit who doesn't care about anyone else's feelings and everything. Daisuke then mentions that Gon said that or that someone tried to grab her, but he doesn't even know if that's true. And then Soji's like, huh? Or what did you say? And then, yeah, so then it goes to Hiyori and Gon still walking. Kageyama is tailing them. Um, but then a worm comes out or from under the bridge that they're about to go under. They cannot defend themselves readily. The worm extends like a tendril towards them, knocks Gon into the wall next to them, and she gets knocked out while Hiyori is just a bit hurt and everything, and just a bit shaken up. But who arrives before Kageyama can turn into the bee to fend off the worm? Soji comes in as Kabuto and fights off the worm. I can't remember if he defeats it or not, but yeah. And Hiyori tries to wake Gon up while Soji is fighting, and when Gon does start to open her eyes, she gets a flashback. Um, Basically, before this, he already asked her if, while they were on the swing set, if she had any parents. She says she doesn't, or no. Then later, when she and Soji both ask at the restaurant, Gon said that she doesn't remember having any parents, and basically they chalk it up to a case of amnesia. And yeah, so when Gon wakes up, she has a flashback to being on a bus at some point. I think a few years prior, or I think it was the 6 years prior to the present day. So basically, during the incident in Shibuya, right? But yeah, and yeah, she's frozen there for a second as she remembers. But after that, she and Hiyori get out of there, and then eventually they meet back at the restaurant with Soji. Soji makes both them food, and he has go and try it. She sips some of the miso soup, and unfortunately, she doesn't like it. To which Soji's surprised, and she's the first. He says that she's the first person to say that they don't like, or first person to say they don't like his cooking. And she says, "I feel like I just feel like I've had better miso." Um, so yeah. So then there's the thing of Daisuke, who is still being an inconsiderate dick. I was gonna say this a bit ago, but like, it's just like I really don't understand Daisuke's like attitude here. It would seem to me that like Gon was freaked out, and he, up until this episode, really seemed to care about her a lot, and even later on shows that he cares about her. So I really don't understand um, why he just has this kind of like cold attitude towards her. He tells her that if she is starting to remember her previous life, that she should just go home and everything. Um, and so she, the thing is, she doesn't remember a lot. She just remembered like, I guess, the last thing before the Shibuya incident. So her and Hiyori get on a similar bus to the one she remembered being on. And after they get to where they're going, I forget where it is. Um, they get off, and Gon looks back at the bus as it takes off and sees it going away, and then gets another flashback to the incident where the worm was on it, and it killed the driver of the bus, which caused the bus to crash into a big tree on the side of the road, and stuff like that. Earlier, also, she remembered being in the, I think, some of the rubble of the Shibuya incident. So, yeah. So then, uh, after that, as they continue walking, or now, uh, when Hiyori is just watching Gon, Kageyama comes up, hits her really hard in the stomach with a gut punch, which knocks her out. I don't know why it knocked her out. It just seemed like that should just make her like fall to the ground. It does, but like I just don't understand why it knocked her out. Maybe it just like winded her so much that she passed out from like lack of oxygen. That's the only thing I can think of. Um so then he grabs Gon and like kidnaps her finally. Basically the plot was to get Daisuke to join Zect at all costs, and he then goes to Daisuke and shows Gon on, I think, a live feed on his laptop, and says that basically his attitude will reflect how she's treated where she's being held. And so he's officially a member of Zect now, and his first thing is to eliminate Kabuto. So he tracks down Soji, turns in the Kamen Rider Drake, fires upon him. Soji then transforms into Kabuto, to which, by the way, Soji went to where Hiyori was on his motorcycle, and he found her, but they don't know where to search for Gon because it's long since she was kidnapped. So, yeah. Um, so, so Soji and Daisuke fight in their Kamen Rider forms first in the armored up forms, then they do the cast off, and they do some pretty cool like fighting choreography and everything in in the clock up mode where Daisuke tries to fire upon Soji, but he uses clock up to avoid the shots. Then Daisuke clocks up to match him, and yeah, Soji basically both evades a lot of Daisuke's hits for a bit. Trying to think, as well as oh, what was it? Basically he avoids some of the attacks for a while until Daisuke gets some clear shots at him with his gun, and that's basically where we leave off during the fight. I think with Daisuke charging up his like final like beam attack and everything. So yeah, so overall, I think an interesting episode in regards to how they're connecting the characters together and how we're getting some backstory for Gon. Daisuke, I really don't understand like his attitude towards this thing. It kind of feels like Gon. Yes, she helps him finish sentences, like he's Finbar Calamitous from Jimmy Neutron. In his first episode, but then you know, it, but like I just do not understand this. Like, it kind of seems like he's also kind of a big brother figure to her, and she's like a little sister to him. So I don't know why he's being a piece of shit to her in this. It's like, okay, I understand you don't entirely believe her that she was jumped by somebody, but at the same time, it's like you should be taking that a bit seriously because, like, from what I understand, that's actually kind of rare in Japan for shit like that to happen, or at least rarer than it is in, say, the United States. It just, I just, I just do not understand it. It's such a weird thing in regards to his attitude towards Gon when she's telling him what happened. I don't know. I do not understand why he just turns cold to her. I understand his frustration at her screwing up, helping him get his makeup stuff done, but like, it just does not make a lot of sense to me otherwise with regards to what's going on with him and everything. We also get a scene at the beginning where Arata is regaling Soji and Misaki with his his story of how he defeated the worm in the last episode. I do respect Soji not like bursting his bubble and everything to take that like confidence boost away from him. That's progress, I think. I think. But yeah. So I don't really have much else to say. I did like this episode for the most part. I just didn't like how cold Daisuke was to Gon. I really do not understand that at all. But yeah, also how creepy Kageyama is. Like, the directors clearly gave him or director gave him clearly gave him the direction of be a creepy stalker who's stalking a kid. Like, did you really have to give him the pedo vibes? Really? Anyways, so yeah. So yeah, I don't really have too much else to say. On to the next one, episode 18. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I got a little sad at this one. So, yeah, so this episode picks up from where the last one left off, and in terms of everything, basically, uh, Soji manages to, well, basically, both he and Daisuke in their battle in a, or they're fighting us in a stand, not standoff, a draw. When Daisuke fires his like final laser attack at Soji, and Soji Rider kicks it away, but is unable, or but doesn't fully like disperse the energy, basically, I think. And so he gets recoil, and so does Daisuke, and yeah. So after that, Daisuke, or Kageyama, brings Daisuke to where Gon is being held, which we later find out is in a holding facility in another part of Tokyo. I can't remember the name of. I do apologize. I want to say Ike, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, wherever they mention in this episode. And he promises he'll get her out of there and everything. But yeah. So then he challenges Soji to another fight and everything. Um, after the after Misaki is and Arata are informed about Gon being kidnapped by Kageyama and Zect, obviously. So yeah. So then Daisuke challenges Soji to another fight. They both henshin into their Kamen Rider forms, but just their armored up forms. And Kageyama also comes in playing dirty, and basically allows Daisuke to get a bunch of free shots in on Soji while Soji's busy trying to defend himself from Kageyama. And Soji ends up being pushed into the water because they're basically fighting on not a barge, but like a strip at the docks, and Daisuke follows him into the water. He gets a few more shots in. Then Soji uses his the cast off to get rid of the armor, and I think also the clock up thing to get out of there. To which that's not really too much of spoilers. I don't think anyone really thought that Soji would really die in this episode, but he allows Daisuke and Kageyama to believe that he's dead, so it just buys them some time. So yeah, there's also the thing of Kageyama talking with a doctor. He says, I'm assuming it's a child psychologist, basically, or a maybe a psychologist for like amnesiacs. Either way, basically, the doctor told him that Gon will probably retain or remember the rest of her memories in time, but she also may, and as a result, she may also remember or forget all of the memories that she made in the meantime. And both Daisuke and Gon are a bit shaken by this. Gon promises she won't forget Daisuke. But yeah. So with that, we see Arata and Misaki talking to Takayama, I believe. And or whatever. They're I forget what the opposite of a subordinate is, but the guy who's leading their part of Zect, and they're wondering. They tell him that Gon was kidnapped by Zect, and they wonder where they would be holding her. And he doesn't give them a direct answer, but he does tell them the location or around the location of where they were. He basically tells them to take some time off and that there's a Zect facility in, I think it's Ike, but if it's Ike Bukuro, I think that would make sense. I think I've been to Ike Bukuro, but not the part that would be like, I don't know, like a spa or something like that. So I don't know. Can't remember for the life of me. I apologize. Anyways, so yeah, so Misaki picks up on that immediately. Arata, being an idiot, doesn't. But yeah. But yeah, so they meet up with Daisuke as well as they have Soji with them because he told Daisuke before their last fight that he should really be having another way to try and save Gon rather than fighting him to the death. Um, basically, Soji says it's time to save Gon. And yeah, basically, Soji just let them believe he was dead so that this would be a surprise, as well as the fact that it would free Daisuke up to not be having to fight him. So yeah, so we have that. Oh yeah, there was also a thing where um I think after the fight with Soji, Daisuke has a drink at a bar with the journalist woman from the previous episode who was trying to interview him, and they get drunk and basically have a conversation where Daisuke says he feels bad that he couldn't protect Gon, and the woman says, and she brings out her purse with her wallet and has a picture of a little girl in it. She says that she also feels bad because she couldn't protect um, the one she loves most. I think is how it's phrased. I could be wrong, but yeah, or the one that means the most to her, and yeah, and Daisuke doesn't immediately pick up on that, but yeah, and he also gets to taste some miso soup that was at the bar when the bartender gives it to him and says sober up with some miso. So yeah, I don't know what's in miso that may help you sober up faster, but yeah. So they all get back to, or Soji, Arata, Misaki, Daisuke, and Hiyori, who tags along because she feels responsible for Gon being kidnapped. They all go undercover at a Zect, I think, yeah, Zect, like kitchen thing near where Gon is being kept, and they did at first want to just not really poison, but like put some stuff in the food to make everyone, I guess, like sick. But Soji says that he doesn't want to do that because food should be sacred. So he, with the help of Hiyori, pretty much makes the food so good that it distracts everyone in that room enough that Daisuke, along with Hiyori, they steal the keys for the holding cell that Gon is in and uses it to free her and everything. Then they get back to the restaurant and everything and basically reassure Gon that everything's fine and that Zex probably won't come after her. But there is the next thing, and Soji basically wants to see if any, like, I guess, alterations to his recipe for miso would make it like what Gon remembers as the best miso that she's had. She tries a sip of every one, and it doesn't, or none of them match up. She says it has a refreshing flavor, I believe. And Daisuke concurs. He remembered having miso like that the night before, and Soji asks where, and they go to the bar that Daisuke was at. Um, and they taste it. Soji agrees that it's really good, and he sees what the guy is doing to cook it to make it different. And basically, the guy just shoves a whole fucking big ass tomato right in the broth of the soup to make it taste different. Um, so yeah, and he says that basically it was where he got the recipe was the woman that Daisuke was with the night before. So yeah. So then we have Gon sipping the miso, and I believe she starts to remember more of her memories as well. But yeah, so then Daisuke puts it together, and the woman from the night before, the interview, or the journalist woman, and he remembers seeing the picture, I guess out of the corner of his eye, maybe his periphery. The picture in her wallet was a picture of Gon from a few years prior, from before they got separated. And he puts it together that she is her mother and everything. So she arranges a meeting with Gon and her mom at I think it's a concert hall. And when, before they can really meet, the worm from the last episode that also attacked them years prior comes back and starts attacking. He uses, or Daisuke uses the dragonfly. Why am I having a tough time remembering what the hell that bug is called? The dragonfly to detach its tentacle from its arm when it's holding on to Gon's mom, and transforms into his Kamen Rider form and starts fighting it. Meanwhile, Gon's mom gets her out of there, and they gets her to safety and everything. Meanwhile, there's also Kageyama, who transforms into the bee and starts fighting both Daisuke and the worm, but more so Daisuke, because he calls him a traitor. Basically, like, I think curses him for like the dirty tactics or whatever, or for saving Gon. When it's just like, I immediately said out loud, dude, you cannot be surprised that something like this would happen, that he would try to do something like this. Because literally um, after Soji was, quote unquote, killed, or Kabuto was killed, um, like, he promised to free Gon, but he kept Gon in the holding cell so that Daisuke would be forced to work for them for longer. So yeah, dirty move on his part. So yeah, so then he uses the Rider's shooting, which is what his final like beam attack is called. Aims it at both Kageyama and the worm. It hits the worm because Kageyama steps out of the way, kills the worm, but unfortunately Kageyama is still there, and everything, and they start to fight. But who comes in but Soji, and he basically just shits on Kageyama, and with a saying from his grandma that I can't remember and don't care about. I'm not even gonna lie. Half his sayings that he says his grandmother said when I guess she was alive just do not fucking matter. I'm not gonna lie. They matter for like, I guess, like thematic reasons, but like, fuck if I give a fuck about remembering most of them. So anyways, yeah, he gets the beetle thing and transforms into Kabuto. Thankfully, they or Kageyama doesn't see him because he's coming up a ramp to the concert hall and everything. So yeah, so he only hears him. So then they both cast off and start fighting. Initially, um, Kageyama and Soji go into Clock Up, where Kageyama tried to make Daisuke shoot on Soji. Um, but yeah, I think when he goes into Clock Up, then Soji matches his Clock Up, powers up his Rider Kick, and deflects the blast back at him. He tries to make it hit uh, Daisuke by hiding behind him, but Daisuke initiates the Clock Up as well and gets out of the way, and it hits Kageyama. Not enough to really like hurt him, but enough to like frazzle him. So yeah, I believe they both get out of there as Kageyama is defeated. So then we see Gon fully reunited with her mom. Her mom is Junko Takayama, and we find out that Gon's real name is Yuriko Takayama, and her mom just keeps calling her that. And when she finally sees her mom face to face, her memories come flooding back to her, and she just fully embraces her mom, which is very different from how things were a few minutes before when she was still with Daisuke. She didn't want to leave Daisuke's side and everything because obviously she had grown attached to him. Basically, also how they met is explained with they were both alone. Then Daisuke offered her a strawberry milk, and they became friends at that point. Um, I will say they have a weird dialogue as well for Daisuke to Gon, where it feels more like something a man says to a woman who he's going out with. It's really weird. Like, I do understand that he's being apologetic to Gon, but at the same time, it's like, why? Um, but yeah. So, um, so then, everything's all good. And we see Gon walking with her mom, or Yuriko walking with her mom. She's in different clothes. She has a different hairstyle. She doesn't have her hat anymore, or her wool cap. And when Daisuke's there, obviously her mom remembers him, but Gon doesn't. Daisuke tries to jog Gon's memory of him, and I think her mom also tries to reintroduce him, but he doesn't want that, and he just basically tries to give an excuse of like, um, saying that she's cute and like he needed to go say hi. It's heartfelt, but at the same time, if you take the dialogue out into its own like out of context, it's kind of creepy. Not gonna lie, and Kageyama had the pedo vibes in the last episode. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, Gon does not remember Daisuke anymore, unfortunately. Um, yeah. So we leave off with that, and Daisuke drives off on his bike and everything and says farewell, Gon, in English, which is nice. That's also the name of the episode. But then we see a teaser for the next episode, I believe, or the next few, where there's a metal scorpion walking around on top of a building. Yeah. Introduction of a new Kamen Rider. So yeah, I actually very much enjoyed this episode. I felt it was a good pick me up from the last episode. I do like how apologetic Daisuke is here. I like how he really does show that he truly does care about Gon. I really don't understand why. This is just a bit inconsistent from the last episode, where he seemed to not give a shit about her temporarily. This I think is a thing that is a criticism of Toshiki Inoue's like writing. I believe is like sometimes the characters can be inconsistent to make the plot happen. I don't really think that you needed him to neglect her for parts of the plot of the last episode to happen. But that's just me, maybe. Um, but yeah, I did enjoy this episode. I like how Soji was being tactical with what he was doing. Um, and like he wasn't being all in your face about how stupid Daisuke can be and everything, and the fact that he didn't have a backup plan to go rescue Gon. Because Soji knows not to trust Zect, and he knows not to trust Kageyama. Because why would he? Um, so yeah, and even if Kageyama did keep his word, it's probably good to have a backup plan. So I think he was thinking strategically when it came to that, and like because like he has a soft spot for Gon, like he wants to help rescue her. He wants to help Daisuke out because he knows Daisuke is being forced to work for Zect and everything, and forced to fight him. And he comes up with a good plan, and he also does it in an interesting way. He doesn't do the straightforward thing. He uses his main character plot powers of having good food all the time to his advantage, I think. But yeah, and I do like the ending for Gon. It is It is a bit heartbreaking when Daisuke tries to have a saying where there's a metaphor, I believe, but then with a comparison, but then Gon, because she doesn't know what the hell he's trying to do, doesn't pick up on his social cue and doesn't complete a sentence for him. So yeah, I think it's a good send off for Gon. I understand she'll be back in future episodes, but like good send off for her at least for now. And I do like how they're connecting these characters a bit, and whether or not they knew each other or saw each other years prior, or if they're just connected by circumstance. It's very interesting. I will say though, in the flashback that Gon sees with when she was on the bus, they like completely censored out like the actor who I'm assuming is playing her father in that flashback's face. I don't know why. Um, it just kind of seemed like, when you have a dream and sometimes faces can be like very little to no details. It kind of seemed like that. So I guess that's what they were going for. But I don't think anyone else's faces in that were like censored out or blanked out like his was. So I wonder if he's gonna be in a future episode as well. But nonetheless, I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was pretty good as a send off to Gon and everything. We'll see what happens in the future with everything. I hope Daisuke can be like Finbar Calamitous and maybe take a self help class and learn to finish his thoughts and sentences. But until that, we will head off to the next episode. Alright, so interesting start to this next, I guess, maybe mini story arc or whatever. So in this, we get an introduction to the newest Kamen Rider, Sasord. But yeah, Sasord, I think is how it's called because it's on the wiki. And yeah, basically a scorpion themed Kamen Rider, which is actually pretty cool. So yeah, we're introduced to the guy who's using the powers, Tsurugi Kamishiro, and basically he is the descendant of an English bloodline, which I feel like there's several factual errors that would stop that from actually happening. Much less, or mainly just be like a rich, I guess, aristocratic English bloodline, which, you know, considering rich English people are racist as fuck and don't want to mix bloodlines like that with non-white people, I, I just don't see that happening. Um, so yeah, just something I thought of while watching that. I'm just like, I don't know if that would actually work in real life. It's just one of those things, you know. But yeah, so we have this guy, um, and he's very rich. He was brought up in a high society kind of life and everything. And we also find out that his ego is just as big as Sochi's. It's just unlike Soji, this guy actually has understandable reasons as to why his ego is as big as a fucking skyscraper. And that is just the fact that he was brought up in a rich family, being a rich kid and everything. So I'm just saying, like, that at the very least lends itself more to understanding why someone would be narcissistic and ego driven and greedy and everything. Considering we have several people like that in the United States government currently, I don't think that's any shock to anybody. So, or at least it shouldn't be. So, yeah, just saying there, and there are many other people outside of the government who are also like that. So, yeah, so it honestly, I think that that's aged pretty well actually. Like I get that it's probably more, or it's supposed to be played more of a more as a joke or something, but like, no, that's actually kind of like true to life and everything. After dealing with some worms and getting a cash check for 3.6 million yen. I realize it's a cash check, which is a bit of an oxymoron. A check, just a check, for 3.6 million yen for taking down the worms. Zect tries to recruit him and have him hunt down Kabuto, but he doesn't exactly work for them. He is accepting offers from them to take down some of the worms, but he's not an employee of them. So yeah, so they're still trying to recruit all of the Kamen Riders and everything. One thing that's just weird to me is the fact that, like, all the Kamen Riders, even the ones that aren't related to Zect in any way, shape, or form, they run on, like, the same, I guess, hardware and software in regards to the stuff that they use to Henshin. And it's just a little odd. You would think that maybe the riders that don't get their powers from Zect, or their powers weren't invented by Zect or anything, would not have the same systems, or exactly the same systems, but whatever, I guess. So yeah. Um so basically after that, the woman who owns the restaurant that Hiyori and Arata work at, she says that there's a soccer game that's going on, a local soccer game. Basically, I think it's for I think it's a tournament kind of thing, and they need one of the teams needs an extra guy. I think the local team needs an extra guy because one of the guys in it is going to miss it because he has something to do. I can't remember what, but like, yeah, he's basically just not going to be able to make the game. She offers it to Arata, but Arata's not very confident in his soccer skills. So she offers it to Soji, who accepts it immediately. Um, but tells her that he to tell everyone to just let him play solo because yeah, he's that confident in his skills, and the series gives him plot armor, so I don't see why not. I guess at this point. So yeah, in almost 20 episodes of plot armor, come on. But anyways, we see the rich guy, um, Tsurugi. Tsurugi. We see him play for the other team, and as soon as he sees that Soji is playing alone, he immediately tells the rest of his team to not, or to like sit this one out. They start playing, and they're basically evenly matched. They run out the timer on the game, um, and the score is 0-0. They can't play any more soccer, so they switch to first basketball, then volleyball, then ping pong, and then bowling. All of which end in a draw. Either they don't score any points on each other and run out the clock, or in the case of the bowling, they they score the same amount of points every time because they get strikes every time, and yeah, so we have all that. Even when it's getting late and they've already completed a bowling game, they go for another round of playing the game to try to like beat for each of them to try and beat the other. So yeah, we have that. Um, Much to the chagrin of Hiyori and Arata, who are watching. But yeah, even after they agreed that or to end it in a draw, at least for now. And Tsurugi asks Soji for his name, he tells him it, and then he gives his catchphrase. And then Tsurugi gives his name as well, I think after Soji asks, and he gives his catchphrase. They're both equally as narcissistic and shitty as each other, so makes sense. Um, and it is a bit fun watching literally the same kind of person, but from two different angles, like go at it. You know, in regards to trying to best one another in sports. Um, so yeah, I don't really have too many complaints about this. I just kind of wish that maybe they spiced it up a bit by saying that the basketball game, because Tsurugi scores a basket. If basically, I think what's implied there is that they both get the same number of points as each other, and it ends in a stalemate because they run out the clock. But I kind of wish that we got a little bit more detail on that, just a bit. But yeah. Um, and also during the soccer game, at the very least, and I think this is a little bit during the basketball, maybe the other sports as well. The ball, in a couple instances, goes very CGI, so that the actors for these two can do some kind of impressive kick moves that they wouldn't be able to do if the ball was real. For like I think like two or three back and forths on the ball, it doesn't really follow the law of aerodynamics too well, but on the last one when Soji kicks it away from the goal, it does kind of follow the laws of aerodynamics and curves off when it goes up and down in an arc, but it also goes sideways a little bit, which is more realistic in regards to that. So I'll give them partial points there, I guess, for the CG artists to pay attention to something like that. Not necessarily that they really needed to, because it probably would like fuck up the pacing a little bit, because this is supposed to be like fast paced and everything. But I'm just saying, it's just something I noticed. And I only noticed it because the last kick made the ball curve off. So, yeah, like it really should, you know. If it had any physics like applied to it at all consistently. So we have that. So then there's a B plot involving the shadow thief, Kaito Shadow. And basically, the person behind it sends a message about how he's going to rob whatever place it is before he goes to do it, and then he does it, and then he somehow always steals the shit that he's looking for and gets away. He almost gets caught by Soji, but yeah, nah, he gets away because Soji gets distracted by something else. I don't really understand why, but okay. Um, it's basically kind of the series in a nutshell. On some things is I don't understand, but okay. Uh, so um, I'm trying to think. Uh, basically, the episode kind of drops it after that, though. Um, because before that, Soji's sister told him about it, and she but then he says basically she tells him it when she's working on homework and he's helping her with the homework, and but he tells her not to focus on that shit, focus on her homework instead. And she does agree with it, but yeah. Um, so the episode kind of drops that for a bit until or drops it a bit after that when we see Arata analyzing some CCTV footage, and he sees that Misaki has been doing thievery as well. Basically, we don't exactly know why, and he's suspicious at first. He even tells Soji about it, but Soji's just like, "Get your head on straight," or whatever he says, or "Get your head examined," whatever it is, because Soji doesn't believe that she'd ever actually be a thief. We do get a slight scene when Arata and Misaki are, I probably should call her Yuzuki, but whatever. But granted, everyone else addresses her as Misaki. But granted, the because it's Japan, it kind of floats back and forth on whether they address the characters by their first names or last names. But yeah. So, and it really depends on the character too. Um, we did see her have I think, a sprained hand, and she says that when Arata asks about it, that she had a bit of a nasty spill, I think is what she says, and yeah, so that's supposed to get you like wondering what the hell happened there. But we don't really focus on it, and it goes by a little bit too fast, and there's other shit happening, so you kind of forget about it until a later scene where he sees the CCTV footage. Somehow he enhances it to be like crystal clear, which that's not how that works at all. The CCTV footage was shot from a distance from the security camera that it was captured with, and it was at night, and even though there was a light source, like you couldn't properly see the person's face even within the field of view that it's in, and you wouldn't be able to enhance the footage. I'm sorry, you would not be able to. Even nowadays, you wouldn't be able to. Even with AI enhancing and everything, or upscaling or whatever, it would fuck up the face so bad. So, like, I don't know how the hell he did that. Even with Zekt's, like, technology, this was 2006. The technology level outside of some of the military equipment and the shit for, like, the Kamen Rider stuff that Zect creates, and the Masked Rider program and everything. Outside of that, it's pretty well established that the tech level was still 2006, because everyone's using flip phones, has like CCTV shit that's like low quality, because it's 2006. They have other technology that is indicative of the mid 2000s. So even though it's Japan, which generally has technology like a few steps ahead of everyone else, for the most part, even though we have caught up significantly since, it's just no. just no. I'm sorry, that's just improbable. And I know suspension of disbelief and whatever the fuck else, but like, come the fuck on, bro. For that to have worked, you would have needed to properly have her look at the CCTV camera and have a clear, non-moving shot of her. I think this is more of a fault of the director not properly like doing certain things to make this even remotely believable. But yeah, after that, he also tells their director, and he explains something to Arata. We're not privy as to what the hell they're talking about, but the next time we see them, uh, Misaki is robbing another place, and Arata helps her get to the van that their director is showing them, or is driving so they can get away and everything. Um, and specifically because he has an ID with Zect, the police that are like blockading an underground tunnel highway thing, or like actually no, it's a one way, but it probably leads to a highway. I don't know. Even just lets them through because of the fact that the guy's with Zect. So, yeah. Um, so they get away. We don't really know why this is as it is. I have a feeling it's probably just to lure out the Phantom Thief and and lure him to wherever they're storing all the shit that they're stealing. But yeah, um, and and all that. So yeah, that's my assumption as to where we're gonna go with this in episode 20. So then there's another worm that comes out during the thieving and everything. Um, it's possibly the Phantom Thief in its real form, but we will see in the next episode. And Soji shows up to fight it, but then so does Tsurugi. Because Tsurugi doesn't know that Soji is Kamen Rider Kabuto, he transforms into Sasword and everything, and starts fighting the worm. And he says, before he transforms, "I'll save you this time." I think is basically what he says. But yeah, but then Soji's just like, "I see. Thanks for the help, but I don't need it." And he gets the Kabuto thing and transforms into, well, Kabuto. They both do the cast off, and while they are fighting the worm, they also start fighting each other. Mainly, Tsurugi starts fighting Soji. Um, he's basically just pissed that Soji is there. Um, and we basically leave off on that note, I believe. One thing I forgot to mention is earlier in the episode when Tsurugi, before he starts fighting the worms and everything, and they get stopped by, they're alerted to something, him and his butler, and then he gets alerted to, I guess, where some worms are, and they get stopped by some cops because, or a cop, because they they're exceeding the speed limit and everything. Um, basically, I'm trying to think. Basically, the car that they're driving, the limo, is for some reason like the the steering wheel is for some reason on the left side of the car. If you don't know, in Japan they drive on the right side of the road, I think. No, they drive on the left side of the road. So the steering wheel should be on the right side of the car, and the gear shifters and everything else should be on the other side of the car. I don't know what they're trying to like imply with this, because like it's not like they're supposed to be in another country, because the thing about it is just like they're stopped by a Japanese cop who is speaking Japanese. The butler is speaking Japanese. Tsurugi is speaking Japanese. So he's technically supposed to be at least part white, unless if like one of his ancestors was adopted into the English noble family that he's a part of. Um, he apparently doesn't really speak any English. I don't know. um, and everything. But yeah, it's really confusing on all this shit. In terms of like the logistics of it. And then he has a thing where he tells his butler, "How about we get a new set of tutors because I've exceeded the one, or I've exceeded what the ones we already have can teach me and everything when they're going over." I guess his like school stuff for the day. I don't know how old this character is supposed to be. It seems like maybe he's supposed to be like maybe late teenage years, maybe late high school or something like that. But the actor looks like he's like somewhere between 19 and early 20s. So I don't know. Um, and yeah, but then we also get a scene where he is having a nightmare where a worm kills his sister, and it's indicative, I think, of him wishing he could have done more to save or defend his sister in that scenario. And we do see that he is multifaceted already with this because we see what his life is like. We see that he definitely feels guilt or PTSD or whatever exactly it is over his sister's death and everything. He obviously hates the worms, but he also still has an ego the size of Soji's. So, yeah, but he also has anger issues. He's very similar to Kage. No, not Kageyama. Well, actually, yeah, Kageyama, but like the other guy that was the first the bee in the series. I can't remember his name for the life of me because he hasn't been in the show for a while, and I don't know if he's gonna come back. But yeah, um, so I don't know. I don't know what's gonna come in the future, but I imagine we may get something to explain these discrepancies. But yeah, he also just doesn't seem to have parents. His butler seems to be um like a parental figure to him and helping him navigate life and everything. They seem to have a Batman and Alfred type situation going on. Um, so yeah, it's just that he's not old enough to be an experienced like hero character. Um, and the butler is definitely not like Alfred. Alfred's more like stern and calm and trying to like analyze the situation in a very cold, detached British way, you know. But then Batman is just doing his own thing. Plus, Batman's more of a detective, and this guy is not. So yeah, um, so that's basically it. I don't really have too much else to say on this episode. It's kind of just straightforward in regards to everything. So yeah, I didn't hate it. I actually kind of liked it as a start to this new, like, I guess, mini story arc that they're doing with these characters. So yeah. Um, Obviously Daisuke is going to return at some point, but we're out with Gon and in with this new character and Daisuke probably elsewhere in Tokyo or just Japan in general doing his makeup stuff. So yeah, it's fine. It'll be interesting to see when these characters all meet and how they bounce off each other and everything. So yeah, and I do appreciate that they're like that starting with the last two episodes before this one, they have kind of toned down and reined in a bit Soji's ego and everything and him being a dick. Because he lets Arata believe that he was the one that killed that worm in one of the last two episodes, or 2 episodes ago. He defended Gon's like side of the thing with the disagreement, I guess, or whatever the fuck with her and Daisuke, and called Daisuke a dick, basically, or called out Daisuke for being a dick, um, and we have him just being the more calm personality compared to Tsurugi. So yeah, so it's just very interesting to see where that is. They're also just more, I think, playing his ego for comedy rather than just having him be, or having it be like more or less. What is the word? Him just being his. How they're playing is just more comedic rather than straight, and that's how you really should play characters like this, rather than being like Sheldon Cooper. You should just be like more self-aware about how you're rating the character and how they come off. Um, so yeah, because that was my biggest complaint with the last batch of episodes, was the fact that like Soji was definitely being written with a horrible, overinflated ego, and they didn't really do anything to make up for it at all or show Soji's different sides of his personality that they did show early on, but they completely forgot about for that stretch of episodes. So, yeah, or at least part of that stretch of episodes. But they are bringing it back here, and I do appreciate that. So, yeah. I also do appreciate the side of Arta that they're showing, because he initially was very suspicious of Misaki, but then he what was it? He quickly like conforms to the other side and everything as soon as he's told what's up. So that's pretty good. Um so yeah. So yeah, I don't think I have much else to say on this one. On to the final episode of this podcast, episode 20. All right, so for the final episode of this podcast episode, or a recap or whatever the fuck. So, trying to remember what the fuck happens. Basically, we get the first half of the episode. Well, the carrying on from the last episode. Um, Soji basically stops the fight before it can really happen. That Tsurugi challenged him to. And so, with that, he transforms back to normal and, yeah, stops the fight before it can really even happen. So then, Tsurugi just goes back to his regular day, in which he sends home all of the tutors that his butler got for him to teach him better. Um, and yeah, and he wants his butler, or he basically wants better ones to teach him more shit. So yeah, and so then his butler is about to go food shopping, but then he says to let him tag along because, well, he's never done it before, and his day just opened up, or the rest of his day just opened up, so he has nothing better to do. And he wants to stand on top of, or be the best at shopping as well. You know, pretty sufficient, like, big ego shit. So, yeah. So basically with that, he's very rude. He doesn't wait in lines to get some of the food. He doesn't, or he buys all of the meat that is at it looks like a butcher's, and then, or a deli, and then, which I guess that's basically the same shit. And then, his butler basically has to apologize for him a lot. And when he's, I can't remember if I don't know if he's heading to a different food store or just a different store, or if he's, doing, or if he's just heading back to, I guess, their limo. But, he basically, crosses the road, not on a crosswalk, just jaywalking. And, Soji's sister is in the back seat of a car that a friend of hers is also in, whose brother is driving. And, because of Tsurugi walking in the middle of the road, as well as, making another car swerve to miss him, that car crashes into the one that's going the other way, and she gets a bit banged up. to the point where she has a bit of a bruise on her forehead. She goes home, and Soji sees what happened and has her tell or explain it to him. Soji then goes up to Tsurugi when he and his butler are about to get in his limo to go home, and Soji promptly punches him with a really good sucker punch. And basically, he says, or Tsurugi wonders what he's doing or why he did that, and Soji says to teach you a lesson. Um, and he says, um, because of your actions, my sister got hurt. And when Tsurugi says you have a sister, he remembers his own sister, and he promptly apologizes, and says to him to tell his sister the same thing. And Soji says, as long as you understand, and walks away. So, yeah, we have that whole thing going on. So then. Sorry. It's like really late and I should be heading to sleep soon, which I will after I'm done recording this segment. So then, we get another thing with the Phantom Thief, which is, I think this was revealed in the last episode, which is Misaki. But we also get a scene where Arata is helping out as the Phantom Thief as well, and he almost gets caught by some police. Yeah. Before they get away. And yeah, we have Kageyama being suspicious of Misaki as well. And yeah, he's just wondering what's going on. We have, in terms of this plot, I think it's Mishima informing Arata's dad, Riku, okay, that they're or that Arata is a part of the team that, or the group that's stealing shit, and they're using their connections with Zect to get around everything. So yeah, I also find it kind of funny that they're using Shadow Thief or Kaito Shadow, considering the team that Kageyama technically leads is called Shadow. They don't really draw a parallel between that, but I think that's just kind of funny. So yeah, so then they go to, or they send a calling card to or business card or something to Tsurugi, saying that they're gonna steal his this statue thing that he has just in his house. And basically he talks to Arata about this, who he mentions that he didn't expect him to be a member of Zect, and Arata's surprised that Tsurugi knows of Zect. But yeah, so basically he is Tsurugi is wanting to protect the statue itself, which is a family heirloom that's been passed down to him. And yeah, so then they come up with a new plan to steal the thing. And when Misaki is going to steal the thing, and she gets out of the van, Soji shows up and says that he's going to help them steal it. And so Soji comes in as Tsurugi's new piano teacher, and yeah, so they go to where Tsurugi's piano is in the other room, and they start playing. I'm not sure what music it is, but this, I can tell it's a very old piece of music. that they're playing, and it's like, I tell you, what would have been funny is if they did like a Looney Tunes esque like piano battle, where like maybe there was a different piano also in the room, and they just like take turns like playing sections of the music until they both just continue to play and trying to one up each other or play over the other. I think that would have been funny. But unfortunately, they don't do that. Kind of wish that they did. But yeah. So then, um, while that's going on, Arata has the butler get him some tea, and then goes into the other room where the statue is and throws it out the window to Misaki, who runs away with it until Kageyama trips her and sees that it's her and wonders why she's stealing the statue. And who shows up but the worm from, I think, from the previous episode. And basically, that's been killing all the thieves and everything, which we did see it earlier in the episode as well. Basically, she explains to him that it was a kind of sting operation where basically they were stealing things to lure out the worm because the pattern is for it that it was killing thieves and everything. So then she has Kageyama deal with it. He transforms into the bee and kills all the like henchmen worms that it summons. But it unfortunately runs away, and we see Soji transform into Kabuto to challenge it. But then, partway through, Tsurugi shows up and transforms into Sword and uses his sword to kill it. And so he then use what is it? After that, he's about to challenge Soji to a fight. But unfortunately, he falls to the ground in pain, and he just can't continue. Soji asks what's wrong, but he doesn't explain, and he just goes off. He transforms back to normal, and then transforms into the worm that killed his sister in the flashbacks. He basically kind of like senses it coming. He says that he feels the worm's energy or whatever. And he wonders where it is before he transforms into it. And then it seems like he loses all like his regular mind to it. So we have that. And it leaves off on that note. Probably one of the first few episodes, or one of the few episodes that isn't a standalone episode that from early on that doesn't leave off on a fight to get settled in the first few minutes of the next episode. So I actually kind of appreciate that. So in terms of this episode, just a few interesting things I found. I like the piano thing between Soji and Tsurugi. I think that it's actually, it can be pretty entertaining. I think they could have one-upped it though, in terms of the over the top factor. You know, like I said, just pull out their inner Looney Tunes, just play out their egos for all the comedy it's worth. I think that that would be the best way to play out, or to like take care of or to take advantage of their narcissism. Now, Tsurugi, we're definitely shown that his brashness and ego and just lack of real common sense are definitely something that is not good. And for this episode, or for this segment where he's out shopping with his butler, yeah, he jaywalks and he nearly gets someone killed. At first, they just show him be rude and not want to wait his turn and buy up all the meat at that butcher's. But then he jaywalks. He causes the two cars to swerve and crash into each other, or one to crash into the other. and because I think one of the cars turns to the side and stops, like perpendicular to the road, and then the other car smacks into it, and it hurts 3 people in the process. So, yeah. I find it funny though that like when it's Soji and his ego, it's played as the right thing and everything, and they do everything in their power to make it not look like he's just an arrogant dipshit. But then when it's Tsurugi and his ego, it's played as an actual bad thing, and they play it like it should be. Like I know that they're doing different circumstances around it, and Soji doesn't intend to hurt anyone, but like, yeah. And the only thing that gets Tsurugi to like apologize to Soji and his sister is the fact, and I guess realize what he did wrong is the fact that like Soji's sister got hurt, um, and everything. I do like that Soji like sucker punches him though, and it's just like I'm here to make sure you learn a lesson about this. Um, so yeah, I do like that we get an explanation as to what they were doing as the Phantom Thief from the previous episode. I guess it's kind of obvious if like maybe you like pay attention to what's going on, like the worm killing the thieves and everything. That is kind of a subtlety that was in the last episode and most of this one. So I will give them that. So I don't mind that. But I don't really have too much else to say on this one. I think Tsurugi's just kind of an asshole, and not really an entertaining one. And then because he has none of Soji's like what is their charisma and everything. Um, and the show doesn't want to put him in the right with his ego versus Soji. But yeah, otherwise okay episode. Can't wait to see what they do with the whole like werewolf worm type setup that they have with Soji or with Tsurugi. So it should be interesting. So yeah, guys, that is it for this podcast episode. So for the YouTube upload, links, description, all my shit. Subscribe if you want, and I'll see you guys in the next one.